Afternoon there. Good afternoon, brothers and sisters. It's always great to see everyone again to our weekly webinar entitled Stopping the Violence. And I always like to give my first introduction is that this is really spearheaded, this webinar was spearheaded by Mother Moon in her efforts to see how we can begin to stop the violence in America and what avenues that are needed to be taken. And especially with guns. Guns has been wreaking havoc in America and really all over the world. And so we realize that if we're going to deal with guns, we have to deal with what are the root causes of people picking up guns and harming their fellow human beings, their fellow brothers and sisters. So a gun is an inanimate object. It takes someone to pick it up and use it. One of the other things that we came into conclusion was that there are root causes. What are those root causes in causing people to harm others? And so last week we had Brad Carson over and he gave an incredible presentation. It was comprehensive, but not complete and finished. So we asked him to come on and give us part 2 of his comprehensive avenues and methodology that he has used in order to deal with violence in America and violence in many times in the at-risk communities in America. So we were so happy, Mr. Carlson, with Dr. Carlson, Brad Carlson, that you are back to give us part 2. And without any further ado, I would like to reintroduce you to our dear brother, Brad Carlson. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Pleasure for me to be here.
Yes, sir. So as we had ended off, you were going over the different avenues that you were taking in order to looking at, strategically looking at, like poverty, crime, unemployment, and you put up that incredible chart and how we have to look at them systematically and deal with them systematically in order to tackle the crime and that is being committed by especially our young people out there in these at-risk communities. So continue on, and if you give us a little quick overview, and then you can move on to part 2.
All right, quick overview. The way I like to present is almost like we're in church, a call to answer, or for those that use the Socratic method of learning by answering questions, basically asking questions and then have the audience answer. So if I ask a question, just shout out the answer for audience participation. With that said, a quick review. I'll try and do this in 5 minutes. Usually I would have the audience actually review for me when I'm teaching this. But the basic premise is that jobs create peace. So that's the basic premise in the framework. The framework is the cross in the logic model of what works towards the solution. So as stated before, jobs create peace. The definition of job is legitimate, moral, ethical, and sustainable form of income. Now, jobs create peace is a true statement in the logic model. That means the opposite is just as true. No jobs is equal to no peace. The opposite of legitimate is illegitimate, unmoral, or immoral, unethical, unsustainable forms of income. From there, we went to essentially 4 socio-economic factors: unemployment, that's related to crime, that's related to poverty, that's related to uneducation. These 4 social and economic factors or conditions of life are all related, and then they're interrelated, or Unemployment is related to poverty. Poverty is related to unemployment. Crime is related to uneducation. Uneducation meaning high school dropouts. Uneducation is related to crime. So when we correlate those four socioeconomic factors, they all intersect right here at that nexus point that I call ground zero. Draw a circle or circumference around ground zero, and that's a known community for its high crime, high gang, and high narcotic activity. Here in LA County, as a deputy probation officer for the last 36 years, I've been in pretty much every one of those known communities, if not every one of them. Generally speaking, this community is 8 blocks this way and 8 blocks that way. With that said, if we add 3 more variables, age, race, and gender, now we know the population of that community that contributes to our crime, our unemployment, our high school dropouts, and our poverty rates. That age is young, the race is Black, and the gender is males. So it's young Black males. When young Black males are extracted out of that community to the tipping point, then who's up the bat next? Young Hispanic males. They're extracted out of that community. And when I mean extracted, where are they going? They're going to jails, prison, and to the cemetery, the grave, because they're dead. Who's up next after the young Hispanic males? Then it's young Black females. They're extracted out. Who's up next? Young Hispanic females. By that time, the young Black males that was extracted out was returned back to the same community, and the cycle repeats itself over and over again for generations. So it's not uncommon for me to have 3 generations, 4 generations of, in this particular case, particularly gang members that are unemployed, high school dropouts, poverty, and crime on my caseload as a probation officer. And my caseload is what we deal with in probation is called high risk repeat criminal offenders, HROs for short. With that said, we came up with the solution. We have to change 2 of these socioeconomic factors: unemployment to employment, uneducation to education, jobs and education, and keep in mind what the definition of a job is, will overcome crime and poverty for the targeted community and the target population within that community every single time. We're not guessing what works. That is what works, evidence-based. With that said, anything at the nexus point right here, which is ground zero, anything to the right of zero is a positive number. Anything to the left of zero is a negative number. And therefore, now we can graph this whole thing out based on these 4 socioeconomic factors and find what's called this line right here, horizontal line, is called the function of X, in order to find this vertical line here, the value of Y. And then, as real estate people would say, location, location, location determines the value. So now we have a predictive model, and we can predict pretty much anything and everything, particularly if you're into algorithms, artificial intelligence. We can predict the metaverse. We can predict anything using these 4 socioeconomic factors. With that said, we saw a 4-minute video called Brad Carson deals with LA gangs, I believe, on YouTube. And so that described a huge gang war back in 1993 to 94 here in Los Angeles. Just to put some back context to that. In 1992, the Crips and Bloods did a gang truce in Los Angeles that went across the nation. 1993, the Mexicans counterbalanced the Crips and Bloods coming together, and did a gang truce amongst all the Mexicans, the gangs that have a 13 behind their name, if you know what that means. And then by the end of 93, they had a huge gang war in Venice Oakwood that I was doing community-based policing in, community-based probation officer of. Uh, and I helped broker and mediate that gang truce. We did that because I knew all the gang members and had a relationship with them. Because everyone in that 8-block area this way and 8-block area that way in Venice Oakwood, I was their probation officer. And I spent a lot of time in the community going to community events and getting to know them. And they got to know me on a personal basis. With that said, the gang truce peacemakers that did the gang truce, so keep in mind, I was just a security guard and a transportation person. I just basically guaranteed a neutral site, which was at our LA County probation office in South Central area, and provided safe transportation to and from, guaranteeing their safety. From my mentor, Jim Gallipo, the late great Jim Gallipo of LA County probation. With that said, the 4 gang truce peacemakers asked for 4 things. 1, they wanted career opportunity jobs. 2, they want to run a community center, a community hub. 3, they wanted more recreational activities at the park. And 4, they wanted less police brutality. We met all 4 of those needs for them. The next video that we saw was a 10-minute video called Jobs Create Peace on YouTube. I'm the chairman of Jobs Create Peace, and Jobs Create Peace is basically a coalition of known gang truce peacemakers. We brought 7 gang truce peacemakers throughout the county, brought 200 shot calling, ball, and active gang members that had a license to operate in their own neighborhood to the County Board of Supervisors public hearing, and was supported by 50 nonprofits as well as faith-based organizations and a major private developer, Playa Vista, that was a $7 billion development. And so from that video, I asked, well, what spiritual things did you see in here? What social things did you see in here? What economic things did you see in here? And then what political things did you see in here? And then ultimately, since the framework is the cross, at the cross, I also wanted to hear, or from you, and I stated from me, at the cross is my core belief system, which activates my core values, my code of ethics, my code of conduct, which are my standards in this life. And from my standards, I derive my standard operating guidelines and my standard operating procedures, protocols, and process. And so ultimately, if I know what your core belief systems are, your core values, your core code of ethics, your core code of conduct, and your standard operating guidelines and your standard operating process and policies, rules, regulations, and procedures, then ultimately what we have to do collectively as well as individually is move this side, crime, poverty, no jobs, no peace, over to this side, jobs and education for a legitimate, moral, ethical, and sustainable form of income. In order to move them over on this side, we empowered the gang truce peacemakers, those that have a license to operate at ground zero. We empowered them with real guaranteed jobs. And then we endeavored to meet the people exactly where they are using Maslow's hierarchy of needs of housing, health. Health is derived from air, water, food, shelter, and sex. That's the basis of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. which simply means that with those five, air, water, food, shelter, and sex, those are all environmental factors. If the environment is loving, caring, nurturing, then you can have a loving, caring, nurturing person, and a loving, caring, nurturing family, and a loving, caring, nurturing community, and a loving, caring, nurturing city, and a loving, caring, nurturing state, and a loving, caring, nurturing country, and a loving, caring, nurturing world, global world. But if those five environmental factors, air, water, food, shelter, and sex, is toxic, unhealthy, such as, say, sex, for instance, if you're a slave, you're getting raped on a daily basis, your air quality is bad, your water is bad, your food is bad, your housing, you have no roof over your head, no clothes on your back, then it's going to be all bad. And the result of that health, of those five environmental health factors, is going to have to deal with mental health. Well, we will start with poor health, poor physical health first, mental health, substance abuse, basic life skills, your education, under poverty, literacy, financial literacy, and computer literacy, employment, entrepreneurship, and back to housing. We have to put those factors, those wraparound social services at ground zero. 8 blocks this way, 8 blocks out. Are there any questions on that review?
Yeah, thank you. Any questions? I can't see, I'm using the phone now.
Do you present this to the powers that be to get their support, or do you present it to your, I don't know, call them clients, or?
Come on, help me. I cannot
No,
see.
I'm here.
The answer is yes. I presented this.
Okay.
I'm gonna ask a question, Nazar. I don't want to.
This guy is waiting for. I need his phone number. I cannot look.
But I,
The answer is yes. I presented this over the last 25, 30 years to actually anybody and everybody that would listen, particularly to like-minded individuals, particularly to politicians, governmental department heads, decision makers, influential people on the street that can sway the audience and their clients and their constituents, so that we can all be on the same page and like-minded and come up with what works solutions.
Thank you. Anyone else like to chime in? I think, Uli, did you have something to say?
yeah, I have a question. My question is, how do you find employment for former gang members? How do you provide careers for them? Do you have people helping you on that?
Yes, what we use is a collaborative, collective impact model. And in the video Jobs Create Peace, where we brought the 7 major gang truce peacemakers along with 200 gang members from 75 different gang sets, the County Board of Supervisors, we got 10% of a $1.6 billion bond measure to improve the parks called Proposition A, Safe Neighborhood Parks Act, that passed right after the 1992 riots. And so 10% of the overall development cost was set aside for our targeted population within our targeted community. And that's a quantifiable amount of jobs, in which the end result of that ended up with 21,000, what we called at-risk youth at the time, got $54 million in their pocket of wages paid to them, and over 2 million hours of work.
Wow, thank you. Anyone else, Mr. Studeville, looks like you wanted to say something. You're muted. Okay,
Okay.
yeah, we can't.
Okay, I just
Yeah.
unmuted it.
There you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hear you loud and clear.
First of all, I'd like to say good morning. And I was invited to this symposium by Brad, which I'm very happy to be here. The question that I have is this, is that when you have and you spoke about the age group that you're targeting, when these people go to prison, they're returned back to their neighborhoods, and there's a high influx of crime because of it. What support are you getting from some of the business owners that listen to you and say that jobs are necessary and we may be able to train these people in something that would make them a constructive part of society?
I'm glad you said that. So as a public policy, not only did we create what's called local target worker hiring as a public policy, when we build a road, a school, a bridge, a harbor, a park, anything that uses our tax-paying dollars in a capital improvement or public works project. We also created the public policies called Ban the Box. Ban the Box is essentially when anybody applies for a job and they ask that damnable question, have you ever been convicted of a felony? Well, most employers just throw that job application right in the trash can. So basically, Ban the Boxes, you don't ask that question when you're filling out the application as an employer. You don't ask the question essentially when you're interviewing the person for the job, but when you actually offer them a job within the top three people that you are going to offer a job to, that's when you ask the question.
Are you seeing that the people that you interview and employ, that they maintain their job position, or do they eventually revert back to a lot of their old ways? Because again, they still in the same neighborhood with their crowd, some of them.
No, I answered your question as far as how do we get around from a private employer point of view. Have you ever been convicted of a felony? Now, as far as breaking the cycle of repeat criminal offenders, in order to do that, we have to move this side over to that side, and how our number one strategy in doing that is providing legitimate, moral, ethical, sustainable forms of income through jobs and education. And we do that mostly by contacting the shot caller gang member that does gang truces and empowering them with guaranteed jobs. We get the guaranteed jobs from our governmental public policies of local hiring, local target worker hiring from this community and this target population at Ground Zero. With that said, I'd like to move on to.
I think we have one other question.
Oh, okay.
Yes, Dr. Madeline Alexander, welcome. You're muted.
Okay, I'm unmuted now.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you and greetings, everyone. I basically have a comment more so than a question. First of all, I'd like to thank you for the work that you're doing. I thank you for stepping into your call and operating in that. I had a conversation this morning in reference to young men being released back into their community. And even though they've done the time, they're still blackballed, blacklisted, or that that film still follows them as they go. I'm glad you mentioned banding the box, because I think that's important. And I think a person deserves a second chance in order to prove themselves. Some will go back to their old ways, and some actually have the heart to succeed and move on and do something different. But in your targeted population, do you find that these men are open to mentoring? Are they asking questions? Are they, and how do they get into the program?
The answer is yes, they're open. As stated before, we deal with those that are most influential on the street. They have a license to operate. The license to operate Gang Truth Peacemakers basically stated that if we, me, and you, and the people that are on this Zoom call, if we can create a legitimate, moral, and ethical form of income, that they would go to their hood on this side and bring this population over to this side. But they have to have this in their right hand in order to replace this economy in their left hand. You know, in other words, in order to put this down, they have to have this in their hand. And you know, generally speaking, when we talking about the peace, we don't actually have this in our hand on the right side to replace this on the left side's economy. And so with that said, I'm going to now explain through Maslow's hierarchy needs as well, how we created all these jobs through public policy. And Nadia, I think we can now go to concepts and references.
Okay, I hope I do this correctly. Oh, here we go. Very good. Do you want me to start at the top, or do you want to?
Let's start with I'll explain it. So there's some basic concepts that we all have to do and utilize, in my opinion. We have to collaborate, and I like to use what's called a collective impact model for collaboration. There's a link there, but we're not going to click on it for the purpose of time. But hopefully you all have that, and if we use that model, then we can have a collective impact on the policies, the rules, the regulations, the directives, the standards of protocols and processes that criminalize our segment of our population and keeps people in a cycle of repeat criminal offenders. Although I am an advocate and 100% for individual choices that people make, or particularly as adults, they're 100% accountable to those choices. But I'm also very acutely aware of the environment of which those choices are made from. The example that I use is, for that is that if I go to Las Vegas and I clone myself so that there's a million Brad Carsons with the exact same experiences, the exact same choices that I have made in my life, and we all, a million of us, now go to Las Vegas as a group, one of us is going to hit the jackpot. The other 999,999 are not. And my question, it's a rhetorical question, but my question to the audience is, why do those outcomes are produced like that? Anybody in the audience knows why 999,999 won't hit the jackpot, but one of us will? If we all went to Vegas, if I was cloned and all went to Vegas, just yell out the answer. Anybody? Well, then I'll answer it. Because the system of the inputs and the outputs of Las Vegas gambling is only going to pay out 1 in a million. So an individual can beat the odds, but the group is going to lose every single time. And that's why we need to use a collaboration and collective impact model to change those policies, rules, regulations, processes and protocols. The next level is what's called an asset-based community development approach, in which we do asset mapping of all of our resources and build on our strengths to cover all of our weaknesses. The next level is a result-based budget based on a result-based management system based on a result-based logic model. And scroll up a little bit more. The next level is a scientific approach of ground zero, which is right here, and where these hoods are, just by factoring these 4 socioeconomic factors and using GIS, Geographical Information System, to virtualize this whole community, and then how we can then utilize that information in a data-driven decision-making process for the policies that we have, the laws that we have, in order to produce the outcomes that we want to achieve. The next level.
Excuse me, Mr. Carson.
Yes, sir.
Is it okay if we can increase your volume a bit, because it looks like it's not very high.
All right,
A lot of people- I was just asking everybody. I thought it was just me, but
All right, I'll try to increase my volume and speak a little bit
or
closer.
you can closer to a mic, perhaps. I don't know if there's a mic that you're using.
Hopefully you can hear me better now. All right, the next level is how we institutionalize local hiring every time we built a road, a school, a bridge, or harbor park. Scroll down just a little bit more for me, please. All right, so here we get to the meat. And the meat is, we created local hiring here in Los Angeles. Between the years of 2016 and 2020, LA County and LA City voters passed measures and propositions and it's significant in 2016. That's when Philando Castile's death in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And in 2020, that's when, oh Jesus, who died in 2020? When we were doing the Black Lives Matter in Minneapolis, Minnesota.
George Floyd.
George Floyd. So between Philando Castile in 2016 and George Floyd in 2020, Black Lives Matter was marching all up and down the place. But we passed here from the city and the county taxpayers measures W for water, measures H and HHH for housing the homeless, measure A for parks, measure M for the Metropolitan Transit Authority, measure CC for the LA Community College District. Those are community colleges, and measure EE for LAUSD's elementary school district, all totaling $170 billion. All of them have local hiring, using the same thing that we saw on Jobs Create Peace on Proposition A, Safe Neighborhood Parks Act of 1992. So what we did was we replicated that model. And it all culminated in the LA County Measure J, an anti-racism agenda. Then we institutionalized that. So go back up and click on for local hiring news. You see that part in the red? Click on that.
Yep, I think I've got it. Wait a minute. Sorry. 1 second. Holy moly. Sorry. Gotta get to it another way. This it? Yes. Correct?
Yes. So can everybody see? So this is in the Los Angeles County Municipal Code. In other words, we institutionalize local and target worker hiring as a public policy. And then we implemented that through project labor agreements, community benefits agreements, and a job coordinator for the implementation of that. And we put all that whole process, rules, regulations, directives as a policy into our municipal code. So you can click on any one of those and it would tell you the Board of Supervisors on how they passed all of these laws, rules, regulations.
I have a question for you in reference to a statement that was being made and a question that was being answered, was asked. You mentioned in reference to the jobs that are available, especially to these offenders and at-risk young people. My question is, in the sustainability process or the how do you get them there? And you mentioned that you are using the most influential gang members out there. Could you tell us how that has been working and what is the success stories in that process, utilizing that process?
Well, it's working extremely well because they're already very well known and influential in their own community, which is at ground zero right here. The hard part was actually creating enough jobs to meet their needs, which is why we went after 10% of the man hours to build a road, a school, a bridge, a harbor, a park, the MTA light rail going down Crenshaw, the California High Speed Light Rail, and the $1.4 trillion Build Back Better infrastructure bipartisan bill. They all now have local hiring for the local target community right here. And it all came from LA County because we institutionalized that. In other words, we guaranteed the jobs to the peacemakers. We didn't guarantee any one individual person a job. We guarantee 10% of that development is going to hire probationers, parolees, members, felons, and veterans. We then now, since we have 10% of those man hours as a job coordinator to coordinate that whole process, we tied that to our WIOA, WorkSource One-Stop Career Centers to get our people job ready. And then we step-by-step process them through that procedurally to get them job ready. Therefore, it's a 1, 2, 3 process in which the job coordinator creates, we have created the local hiring of 10% of the public works project. We then create the local targeted worker that's now job ready, and the job coordinator matches the job ready person to the locally created job opportunity. When we tied that to the WorkSource One-Stop Career Centers, and in California, they're also called American Job Centers of California. Now we just opened it up, not just in the construction, building, trade industry, but all the industries for any job.
That's great. Thank you very much. I see some other hands. We can go to Jill Perry, and then to Don Marsalek. So Jill, welcome.
Hi, how are you? Thanks, you guys. I started a little bit late, so I apologize if this has been covered. But in your circle with the ground zero, and you talked about unemployment and education, or employment and education, has there been any discussion about quality mental and physical health with them? So in other words, is that already on there? Okay.
That's health based on Maslow's hierarchy of needs: air, water, food, shelter, sex, which are all environmental factors.
Awesome. How is the health insurance and mental health, physical health in LA? Do you know, can you compare anything to the rest of the United States or DC or anything else as far as the care that they're getting?
I'm not a health expert. What I am is a workforce development expert.
Sorry.
Essentially a ground zero gang expert, community-based public safety expert. But what we did do is that we got a subject matter expert in each one of these fields: in health, in mental health, in substance abuse, in life skills, in education, in literacy, both financial literacy and computer technology literacy, in employment, and in entrepreneurship, and in housing. And with these basic wraparound social services with our subject matter experts, we put the problem right in the center, and then each one of us does our thing in order to produce the outcomes that we want to achieve.
One more question, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Why are we sorry for the sarcasm. Why are we so surprised when the rich, white, upper class succeeds and has less? It seems so obvious to us that the reason why we're struggling so much is because of what these people don't have, right? Like, it's just so unfortunate that the upper middle, upper classes, they have all these things, right? They are educated, they don't have poverty. So that's why there isn't as much crime, right? And then the poor just get punished, doesn't it? Do you ever feel that way?
Well, that's why we changed the laws from a legislative point of view, from a public policy point of view, and then that's why we go to the community to actually implement the new laws in order for it to benefit what's called a community benefits agreement, those at ground zero.
Thank you.
Go for those questions and
Question.
remarks.
Question?
Yeah, and Don Marcelet, go ahead, please. Are you there, Don?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. President. Can you show some statistics that would show the increase of employment among the young people, young adults in this 8 square block area? Let's say in the last 5-10 years, that have been significantly where their employment is significantly improved. What statistics can you cite?
All those statistics are cited in the municipal codes when the LA County Board of Supervisors had to prove what works. And so if you click on those municipal codes, click on the Board of Supervisors public hearings, it would cite those it would cite those statistics that you're talking about. I'm not a real big statistic guy, but that's why I also sent the concepts and references page. And if you click on any one of those, it would also be backed up by citations, particularly when I sent over my the year 2013 biography of What Works presentations that's on permanent file to the LA County Board of Supervisors. I cite references that can then easily be cited as statistics, but I'm not a real big statistician person.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Don. Any other question?
Yes, you last week you ended up with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and you mentioned that again today, getting to a loving, caring, nurturing environment, and you said that was environmental factors. Isn't that originally where these young children should be reaching? Isn't that the family? And you seem to stop at that point. Are you assuming that these families are not going to be functioning, that we're just dealing with a system of the families broken and the high schools dropped out, and then from there we start this program to help them along? What about before dropping out of high school, back to the root of everything, with that child growing up in a one-parent family versus a two-parent family, etc.?
As I stated earlier, when from Maslow's hierarchy of needs that are environmental, it's going to affect that individual, it's going to affect that family, it's going to affect that neighborhood, it's going to affect that community, it's going to affect that city, that state, that country, that nation, and the globe, the global world. So it's an all-inclusive model, and we start exactly where they're at. So that individual or that family has not been incarcerated yet, then we'll start there.
Thank you. Yeah, so Amy, that's a very interesting question. Thank you so much, David, for that question. Family is the backbone of, I should say, our society. So I want to thank you. I wanted to ask, Kevin Orange had put something on the chat, but I would like to ask if he can come on and if he had any questions or remarks to make in regards to your presentation, Brad Carson's presentation.
Yes. Good morning, everyone. I am Kevin Orange. I am the co-founder of Advocates of Peace and Unity, which oversees a GRID program under the mayor's office called Gang Reduction Youth Development. I'm also overseeing the Office of Violence Prevention, Trauma Prevention Initiative in the West Side of West Montana corporate area. And we do service our youth and family in the communities. And what we have noticed in prior years, probably I've been in this community for like over 50 years. So what we noticed, the violence is just the underlying conditions that this community has been plagued upon them for years, and that's the trauma. And we noticed that trauma, we never had no service to address the trauma, or our community never knew how to access the trauma services because we didn't have none. And so we found out that's the underlying condition that's keeping our community in the conditions that they're in, because they don't know how to deal with the traumas that have been plagued upon them. So this is where we leverage our relationships with probation, where my organization is a community-based organization, where we help assist Brad Carson them with these high-risk youth in these communities. So we grow up with them, we know their grandparents, we know most of them other than fathers. So the relationship is there already. So it's to give us better access at them because we've been knowing them since they was born. So we just give that an extra extension for the fatherless homes. And we noticed in the past, probably since 2014, where we've been starting this partnership, that it works. This process works. How we partnered these at-risk youth with some of these community-based organizations with a mentor, so we can start addressing these issues that have been plaguing them forever. And the underlying conditions always come down to trauma. It's always been some type of unresolved trauma that existed in their families from years ago to where they was born into it, to where it's at their schools in the streets. So these are the things we bring it to the community now to address these problems. So we can cut down recidivism in our communities. Bad as it may look, when you look on TV about shootings and homicides, our shootings and homicides are down from last year to date. So them are the numbers that we can show you. Our partnership with probation, law enforcement, and community-based organizations, they do work for our communities because it does save lives. And so when we can get a person in a safe enough space to where they feel safe to just go to school or go to some of these trainings, it makes it more acceptable for them to sit there and learn while they're there. So this partnership is greatly needed. It's probably 30, 40 years behind that we're trying to catch up with, but we're not gonna worry about that. We're gonna get them where they at, and we're gonna bring them along from there.
Very much for that.
Thank you, Twin. So Twin has a license to operate. He's a peacemaker. He's a community organizer. He's a community advocate. He's all into public policy, and he is a coordinator of the services and a leader of his community. That is a perfect example of empowering, helping to empower Twin from my position inside the criminal justice system, so that Twin can do his thing out on the street. There's also Barbara Jett that's in the same position. And I don't know if Dr. Akil Bashir is here from Peace in the Hoods that essentially created community-based public safety as a public policy.
Yeah, I want to thank him, but I think that's a critical piece. But I think people are asking, you're giving us the overview of the whole strategic methods that are being used and what is critically needed in order to begin for a restoration process of our young people. But still, that is still like a monkey on the shoulders or on your back is the trauma, if you will, that needs to also be addressed. And I used to do a seminar, a webinar, and something, especially in minority communities and specifically African-American communities, we never deal with mental health. We just keep going on, give it to God, you know, those type of things. You know, so this is critical because trauma attributes to the decrease in dysfunction in mental health, and it needs to be addressed. So I really appreciate what Kevin, Mr. Orange had just said. Anyone else has anything else that they would love to, to share and ask a question? If you, I don't see everybody, so just jump on if you can.
Could I ask you a question?
Please.
Mr. Carson, I really appreciate your holistic approach. Very, very good solutions offered there. Well, one thing I was wondering, it seems like you're offering solutions for, local solutions for local problems, but what about the influx of recent with cartels coming across the border, especially going into Southern California? The influence of the media, I should say, like more like a violent cultural effect being promoted through the media. The abundance of illegal guns. I was just wondering, these are not issues that you can control so well in your local area. How can we deal with those problems from a larger area?
Well, I beg to differ. The only way to control it is locally. And again, the whole purpose is to move this side of illegitimate, unmoral, unethical, and unsustainable forms of income over to the right. In order to do that, we have to empower the twins and the Barbara Jetts and the Dr. Akil Bashirs of the world with guaranteed jobs and education to back it up, including that mental health component of trauma-informed care, which we have healing circles that have been standardized and operationalized locally.
Thank you.
Catherine
Go ahead,
Duncan?
please.
Catherine Duncan has a question.
Yes, I
Yes,
just
go
wanted
right
to
ahead,
make
Catherine.
I wanted to make a comment because I've been working with Mr. Carson over the years trying to figure out how to implement a similar process here in Las Vegas. And it's very difficult to get our local governments to understand what it is he's proposing. So I'm wondering, Mr. Carson, after you've given your presentation to this group, how do you believe the Universal Peace Federation can assist you of getting this message across cities across America?
That's a great question.
That is a very good question.
And you're muted.
No,
Go ahead.
I'm here. I'm just getting close to the mic. That's a
Still
very good
can't hear you.
question. So I believe in a collaborative, collective model. So how everybody can fit in. I believe in a circle. They fit in where they get in based on their God-given gift, talent, skills, mission, and calling in life, and to meet the needs of the targeted population within the targeted community, for them to do their thing, and for us to all work together in a collaborative, collective impact model to make that happen. So the first step is to understand what that collaborative and collective impact model is. The second step within is to identify each person's gifts, talents, skills, mission, and calling in life. And the third step is to set up a collaboration model in which we can coordinate all of those different efforts.
Thank you.
As
Any other
a
questions?
follow-up, you and I talk about jobs create peace, but how does that work with this virtual community action planning that General Bray has talked about with us? How do they work together?
The virtual community action planning is based on GIS.
Again, you're muted.
The virtual community action planning is based on GIS, Geographical Information System, in which we virtualize all the resources, particularly the assets in that community. From virtualizing it, we can then identify any gaps, fill those gaps with the outside resources so that we can provide wraparound social services at ground zero.
All right. What question?
Okay, so we're on the right track here in Las Vegas. Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, Catherine.
Question. You haven't mentioned anything about the churches. Have the churches been of any value or help or what in solving this situation?
Yes, in 2005, the license to operate Gain Truth Peacemakers, we went to the 7 Black mega churches here in Los Angeles because we knew Obama was running for office. And when the politicians run for office, they go to the Black mega churches, give a 5-minute speech, sit in the front pew, and then they bounce. What we did is that we wrote a political platform for the mega church leaders to give to the politicians that are running to get our votes and for them to sign off on that political platform. And the political platform is what you see on the board and what you have seen in the municipal codes of Los Angeles County, that every time we build a road, a school, a bridge, a harbor, a park, we're going to have local targeted workers. We're going to have a construction careers policy. We're going to implement that policy through a project labor agreement and a community benefits agreement. And we're going to be the job coordinators to make sure that that happens.
So you're just saying that the church has played a critical platform in helping you pivot off in certain areas?
Yes, we wrote that political platform. Then the politicians signed off on that political platform. And that's how we institutionalize local hiring on a public policy level.
Mr. Carson, you have to revolutionize this whole concept of dealing with the issue of crime and finding a way to find a solution for the crime. And it's like an extended family. You're like a family, getting to know each other's needs and find a way to meet those needs. So the spirit behind this is very like a spirit of a family, working together, cooperating together, pooling resources together. We need that type of consciousness, that type of awareness. It's desperately needed. And also, it's so way possible. You have like speakers going to some of the universities, go to some of the universities, and just some of the courses dealing with crime prevention, dealing with solutions to crime. You could do an awful lot to change even the books have written about dealing with this issue. They need to be changed. They need to be radically changed.
So may I just offer the American Clergy Leadership Conference under the co-direction of Dr. Rouse and Dr. Jackson have taken on this project as a nationwide initiative to end violence in America. So we're reaching out to clergy across America, especially ACLC clergy. We're looking for 3 clergy in every city to unite with the mayor of that city so that we can bring these types of initiatives to every city across America as a nonviolence initiative. UPF just got the jump on us by bringing Brad Carson on board quicker than we were ready, but we're so pleased that you did. But we're going to be launching the National Nonviolence Commission at UNLV on 1 October, which is the International Day of Nonviolence. We're going to be commemorating the 1 October massacre here in Las Vegas. So this whole initiative will be launched on 1 October. So the clergy across America will be able to unite with our local mayors. We'll hopefully be working with the African American Mayors Association to launch this initiative across America. So we're just at the tipping point of getting all of our contracts signed and all of our negotiations in order. But this is something that ACLC is firmly standing behind, and we really appreciate UPF's support and your platform. So thank you.
Thank you. And I believe Barbara Jett wanted to say something. Well, I think she had to leave.
No, she's
here.
I can't. I'm muted.
No, we can hear you.
I hear you. We
Oh,
hear
you can
you
hear me
loud and
now?
clear. Yes.
I was
uh-huh.
actually going to say what Brad said beforehand, because in order to make this happen, you need everybody on board and to bounce ideas off of, and to make sure that the powers that be hear your voices as a collective, because they're not just going to hear me and they're not just going to hear you, they're going to hear us. So it takes everybody, the homeowners, the business owners, the churches, the CBOs, and the entire community to come together as one in order to let them hear us as a power. So expand, not just the churches, you got to add, bits and pieces of everybody who has this same value system and the same belief that we can do this, and you bring those people together.
And I want to thank you again, Brad Carson. Thank you, Barbara Jett, for those remarks. We're coming to our close, and I want to thank you. But I would like to say this is like the 60th webinar that we have had. And we've had, one thing that I have learned, Brad Carson, is what you're doing is absolutely incredible. But what I also learned is that there's so many people around the country that are doing similar things. And I think we need to begin to come together and help one another. Everyone is over here, over here, over here. We've had law enforcement on it. They have done it, said incredible, have some best practices and some stats that are working in different areas. We've had mayor of Kansas City, both mayors, and we've had other people in New Jersey and all those people, advocates like Brother Orange and all those people. And I think we need to come together. What I would like to do is, in collaboration, and thank you, Catherine, is to bring everybody together, because there is a model that you have, Brad, that is missing in someone else's piece, and then somebody else around the country has a piece that is neat, you can use, add on. But I think yours is completely comprehensive, and I really appreciate that. And I think that around the country, we need to bring a whole national outlook on the best practices that are out there and bring everybody together, because what you have said, and I like how there's a central axis, and you work from the central axis that connects every piece together, and it's really an excellent formula. So I want to thank you very much for coming on again and sharing with us. And again, I like to say that it's quite comprehensive. And one thing that I did appreciate that you said that you stick with what you're good at, but then what that is needed, you hire people to come in. You get the mental health professionals, everybody to work on that central, in tandem, if you will, with that central axis. So I'm really thankful and grateful to what you have been doing in Los Angeles. And it seems like it can be a national model program that can be implemented around the country, along with other brothers and sisters around the nation that are doing some great things as well, some best practices as well. So I want to thank everybody for coming. Brad, we look forward to talking with you. With Catherine, look forward to her playing a critical part in really connecting you with the American Clergy Leadership Conferences. We have several pastors throughout the country that can be very instrumental in creating certain platforms for you and for the area of stopping the violence, as you have already shared how some of the religious institutions have played a critical role, and even the political platforms that are needed. So everyone, thank you very much. Again, Brad, thank you again. Did you want to say a last few words before we close?
Yes. Thanks for having me. Thanks for everybody on this Zoom meeting. And then, as Barbara Jett so eloquently said, it takes a village to raise a child.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. Okay. Thank you very much. And thank you again for coming on a second time to, ingratiate us with part 2. And it's very profound. So let's, Catherine, you got a big job ahead of you. And anything that I can do, I'd be more than happy to help in any way I can do from UPF
right.
standpoint.
Watch what you tell me, because I got plans for you.
And so God bless you, everyone. See you next week.
Thank you.
Peace.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Carson.
Yeah, thank you so much, Brad.
Thank you so much.
Wonderful.
Mhm.
And everyone on here who's interested for our cities and our country. Beautiful.
Yes, absolutely.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Oh.
Mr.
Reverend
Archie.
Oliver, there's some
Yeah.
other folks that are trying to get in touch with you for other speakers in the future. Please check your emails.
Yeah, so also, if I don't, please CC Nadia as well, okay? So we work as a team. So I would be grateful if you would CC Nadia. If I'm traveling or something like that and I don't see it, then she will respond to it as well. That's why she's here. So I greatly appreciate if you do that. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, thanks.
Mhm. All right.
Okay.
Everyone, see you. God bless.
Okay, thank you.